Hello, this video is to show how to create color palettes for week 4 assignment 2. The first thing I want to do is open a color wheel after downloading my Photoshop palette, and I've got my color wheels and I've got them set at 50% magnification so they fit into my recording window without any problem. And what I want to do is actually, let me shrink this down a little bit, make this, there we go. Now I want to make sure that I have accurate color wheels so that I'm selecting appropriate colors. Now I'm going to begin with the tetrad color palette and I'm going to work in HSB slider mode. Now the first thing I want to do is use my line tool, which is here hidden under the rectangle tool, and select colors. So I want to choose red and cyan, blue and yellow for this particular one. Okay, so I've marked my colors. They're equidistant on the color wheel. Essentially, tetrad sets are two pairs of complementary colors, colors that are exactly across from each other, directly across from each other on the color wheel. So I'm going to use my eyedropper tool and select a color and fill the color. Select the cyan and fill the color here. Now there are lots of ways to do it. I have another video where I show how to put it in corners and do it a slightly different approach. So there are many ways to address this. Okay, and now I'm going to select my final color of yellow, and there we go. Now what I want to do is work in the HSB slider mode and start with red, and I want to create I'm going to go from a tone to a shade to a tint, or I could go from the maximum saturation color to a shade, a tone, a tint. It doesn't matter how you do it as long as you are thinking about value and contrast, because we're going to use this assignment for the next exercise. So I want some contrast. Okay, now I'm going to create a tone, and I want it to be, I want it to have some color in it, but I want it to have also, gradual progression in value so that I get, this is a middle value. Now, when I use Command or Alt-U, I bring up the Hue, Saturation, and Brightness tool and notice that this color, all the colors, maximum saturated colors that are here, the value is 50% gray, just like this standard 50% gray value is, okay? And now I've got a shade, which is now at 30% value. So if I choose a color for my next one, I want to create a tone, and maybe I want it to be a little bit lighter, but I also want it to have a grayer quality. Still have some red in it, but a grayer quality. Now let's try that. And it looks a little bit lighter in value. Command U if I want to think about my value contrast, because I'm going to use this for week 4 assignment 3. I want some contrast. So that's it. 50, 30, 39, pretty close. Okay, I'll use that. And then I want a tint. So let's bring this brightness all the way back up, and I want a wisp of color in it, but I want a light accent. There's a nice color there. There we go. Okay, so now I have 3 colors, including my maximum saturation red. And I can go on and do the same thing with the next color, and I can make it really dark if I want. I might, decide I want to use that for a nice dark accent, and I can create a tone. I can do whatever I want in terms of color and value, as long as I am producing a range of value, because that's my thought for the next assignment, right? I want a variety of color. I want some color, but I want some accent too. So there we go. Okay, I can go down, do the next one. Nice deep shade. It's almost black, right? You still get some sense of blue in it, but it's very dark. And here's a nice gray, cool gray, blue gray. And I'm going to increase that saturation. I'm sorry, increase that brightness. And same one, a color maybe not quite so light and bright, but somewhere it gives me a nice bluish hue to use. Okay, there we go. Now I'm going to select my final color, create a shade. Notice how when you add black to yellow, it becomes an olive green kind of color. And I want a tone, nice gray soft tone. And I'm not really thinking too much in this one about my value structure. I'm just trying to get a little bit of variety here. All right, now I also want a tint, but I want to retain some of the brightness of the yellow for this. So yeah, that might be, I want to make it a little bit lighter. Okay, so now I have a range of hues to use for my color exercise. And Command U will show me my value structure. And look what I have, some nice range of darks, and these are all middle value. These are a variety of darker values. There are some intermediate dark values and some nice bright light values. Okay, so I can go and now choose a triad palette. And again, I want to use my line tool and mark the colors. Say I want to use cyan, magenta, and yellow. And if I mark them, it's, oops, I want to go back to my default colors so that I can see those lines very clearly, marking off my triadic colors so that I am very clear on what colors I'm actually using. And I don't make mistakes and accidentally grab cyan blue instead of cyan, that I'm on point, because once we learn the color strategies, we can do anything we want, but it's important to make your choices intelligently based on accurate selection of color, right? So I'm going to start with the cyan. I'll put the cyan in this corner, and magenta, and yellow. Okay, now I can switch to RGB mode if I like and work that way, selecting, okay, I've got yellow, and let me select for my other color, this magenta. And now what I can do is start to adjust these two colors here and bring more of the yellow in by adjusting these two. So that's giving me a kind of a creamier yellow magenta mix. And I can increase the yellow in the mix considerably and still, you know, have some sense of peach in it, or really go for a much lighter, almost yellowy orange. So that gives me a range of colors to use, mixing those two together. And I can select this color, switch that out, and select this color. And working with, let's see what I can do here. That's maybe a little bit more magenta in the mix there. It's always a matter of adjustment, right? There we go. And my value structure is not going to change that much when I'm working this mode. I mean, I can. Let me make that a little bit darker. Okay. And I want to push it more towards the cyan. Get an intermediate color there. So now I have a range of color. That one's not quite. I think I want to leave the red out of the mix and push it a little bit closer to somewhere in between. There, we'll try that. Okay, so now I have a range of hues mixed with magenta and cyan. And we can progress on and take these two colors and find something somewhere in between those two colors in order to get another intermediate hue. Let's try that one. That looks pretty good. And there, go on from there, selecting each one of these colors. Switch that, select that one, because I'm kind of blending the two of them together, and adjust maybe a little bit more. Push the green a little bit now. I don't want to work with the green. That's not quite working. Let's see. I want it to go a little bit more towards, yeah. Now this is all intuitive, based on, you know, understanding how to mix color from experience. I think is more appropriate way to describe it. So now I've got something. That's a little bit too. I want to give it a little bit, yeah, more of the yellow. Okay, so that looks more like a mix between yellow, this yellow, orange, and blue green. And now let me think about the next color. I want a little bit more blue in it. Okay, now I don't want the violet in it. A little bit more blue. There we go. So see what I'm doing? I'm gradually working in that direction to create colors that I feel would be a nice mix, blend between these. And what I could then do is say, select this color here and decide to make, I want to make a deeper shade of it. I can switch to HSB sliders, make it just a little bit darker, and even push that number back to 180 because that's what my cyan color is, and see I've got a slightly deeper tone. Okay, and then I can go to the next color here and do two versions of that and work my way down, gradually increasing so I get some contrast in my colors, right? Because I'm looking for colors that have some contrast. I want this a little bit more in the blue direction maybe, or just leave it where it was. You know, it's certainly, you know, up to, you know, you how you want to adjust the colors. I'm gonna just do this one like this. Okay, oops. Where did that go? Went a little bit too dark. Okay, here we go. Do that one. And I'm going to go back to this color because I know it has some of the properties that I'm looking for, but I want deeper contrast, right? Darker value. There we go. Well, that might be a little bit too dark. How about that? And then maybe I can go even a little bit darker. And because I'm, you know, I've got plenty of warm colors, I'm just going for a few accent darks. So here we go. I can take this one, add a little bit more value to it. And if I want to brighten the color a little bit to give me a little bit greater range, I can certainly do that. And for this color, same thing, right? Add a little bit more color in it, but a little bit darker value. So I have a nice range of colors to use. Now I have a nice palette, a triad palette. So for your third palette, you can choose monochrome, split complement, complement, analogous, color dissonance, which would be just like pick any crazy color you want and create a blend. So there's a second way to approach mixing a tetrad and a color palette for week 4 assignment 2. And again, planning ahead so that you have a nice range of value contrast to create depth and visual contrast in a design. And I'm just looking at this one thinking, you know what, I want that one even darker. I really want a nice accent dark. So there I have it. Okay, and you know, again, if I want to create smoother transitions, I can just push that one a little bit more. So we can constantly rethink it, take a moment to think about it, set it up a little bit more in order to maybe I want a little bit more color in that one. Make some adjustments before we turn it in and give ourselves a nice color palette with choices of value and color contrast. Okay, let me know if you have any questions.